Hello, hello. We are going to have a very, well, gosh, I'm not going to try and tell y'all how you're going to feel today, but so far as I'm in charge of where we're going in the next hour or so, I'm going to vote that we have a very laid back time. I'm so sorry that for the learners who came live, or I guess watching the video as well, I was so excited and promising to do colors with you yesterday, and Carmen swooped in and we sort of negotiated. So Carmen, a delight and probably way more fun to study colors with. I'm super jealous because colors is one of my favorite lessons. And today, instead, we're going to be looking at something that's not one of my favorite lessons, which is CSS styling and forms. But we're going to have a really chilled out approach to it, and it probably can't kill us. Even more than that, it probably can't hurt us. In this lesson today, I'm going to be really mindful that I'm going to talk about a couple of different things. So, hey, we could do this, we could do that. And overarchingly, my approach to CSS styling with forms is going to be don't do this unless you really need it. And that's not for styling overall, but we'll hang on. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get there when we get there. So we'll look at some really brief notes, then we'll do a little bit of code together and have a really chill time. If folks have questions, as always, please chuck your questions in the chat. And for those of us who are, those of y'all, I'm here live. Those of y'all who aren't here live, you're so welcome to bring questions to the Discord channel if that's easier. So, best practices for styling forms. What do we need to think about? What do we need to be aware of? A lot of our CSS styling with forms is the same as CSS styling best practices without forms. You want your fonts properly sized and responsive so people can see them and so people can change the size on their own. Just like any other kind of CSS, you want a really good contrast between your background and text colors. If you've got using a placeholder in some of your input fields, make sure that has enough contrast where you can see it. Modifiable input elements. For example, if users can resize text areas, that can be really useful for folks who want accessible experiences to be able to see what they're typing in. Making sure you have a focus indicator when the element is in focus, which by default most browsers will add, and some kind of noticeable indicator of error state. So we talked about sometimes having the error state around a form field be red, for example, or to have a big, add a big exclamation point next to it, just a noticeable, hey, look, this is not working. Oh, already got a really good question. So, okay, so if we are styling forms, should we keep this style similar to other website forms, or is it okay to experiment? We're thinking about our user's experience here. All right. I love y'all getting to experiment. I love you being weird, but I think you've already hit on what I'm going to suggest in the first part of your answer, which is, hey, because a form on a website often has user input, we might want to keep it looking and feeling pretty similar to forms they've experienced elsewhere. And this is because those forms, especially if you're a shop or if you're providing services, it can be really important that your users understand how a form works without maybe it getting too exciting, too experimental. Yeah. Sorry to always tell you to be more creative and here, but like with forms, we might not want to be too silly. We might not want to be too experimental. So let's think about when we style checkboxes and search inputs. And styling text box and search inputs can be really difficult because by default, different browsers that your users are using are going to set different default styles. To add custom styles, you can override the default styles by using appearance none. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. It's a very springtime summer in England, and I'm allergic to everything. My apologies. So, to strip out the default styles, we're going to add appearance none, and then we can create custom styles if we want to. Doing this would create consistency across different platforms, but also by using appearance none, we're also stripping out some default features that are really useful for our users. And these could be focus indicators. And we need to make sure if we say appearance none, if we're overriding our browsers, we then need to put back things like focus indicators, which our browsers usually add by default. Okay, so let's say hypothetically, we absolutely did want to do this. Sorry. So you say, hey, we do want to override this. What are we going to do? So it can be really, really difficult because from browser to browser, there can be different complex pseudo elements to specify what's going on. For example, Chrome and Safari would use the pseudo element or this pseudo element WebKit color swatch to change the styling on input elements in a form. Whereas Firefox would be over here saying, oh, I'm going to use the pseudo element Moz color swatch to change those color inputs. You could tell that this is Etta putting really, really lovely notes together for us because Etta's here saying, hey, because of these challenges, we want to be keep in mind that maybe you might need JavaScript or custom components to style these elements. Yeah, I'd go a step further and say, cool, because we know styling some input types like changing the date picker or changing color picker, unless you have a really, really compelling reason to do so, as a beginner or somebody who's an intermediate, let's go ahead and just leave these alone for now. So say, cool, we know that styling special input elements can be really, really tricky. For now, until we have to cope with that, let's just leave her alone. So I've seen a couple questions. Mel's asking, is there a way to create your own elements? For example, if we override something and get everything perfect and it works on all browsers, how do we pull that code in and use it on other pages? So our, I think what you're saying is when we were talking about we're talking here about, oh, where are we? Where are we? How some special input elements have different types of code that you need to write for different browsers. Yeah, so there's no real creating your own elements in HTML isn't really a thing. But if you learn some JavaScript or once you learn some JavaScript, the ability to do these in JavaScript might be an interesting approach. Yeah. Unfortunately, because these are kind of fussy, creating that reusability again and again can be challenging. Yeah. In the chat mentioning you don't like rewriting the same code again and again, but reuse can be different on different projects. This is such an advanced point that code reuse, getting in the habit of saying, hey, I've made this work in a different part of this project or in a different project. When and how can I reuse it is a really good question to be asking. But I don't think making your own elements. Yeah, if you did want to create your own HTML element, or if you wanted to create your own CSS property, you'd have to go and talk to the W3C and get all of the browser makers to agree on it and put it into the language. So yeah, sometimes we could be talking about doing this in JavaScript, which I'm sorry, we're not going to cover in the course. But one thing we look at, oh gosh, and you know, Etta makes a really good point to be like, hey, but web components might also be the answer here. Thank you, my apologies. So let's jump around a little bit. I've told you several times, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But let's come in and look at the design a registration form. We're going to write a little bit of code together. So this is a workshop, so we'll be going step by step. Oof, and it's a form. Okay, we've got a bunch of different types, and we've got some styling. So I'm going to start coding, and I'm going to, so checking this out, step one, we've got our boilerplate done. Oh, where am I? Who am I? Within our body, we're going to do an H1. And let me just make sure who I am indeed sharing the right screen. And registration form. I'm not going to do a lot of explaining on this one because this is creating an H1 with the appropriate text, and we've done this a bunch. Let's keep bopping along. Below the heading, we're going to add a paragraph element. We can do that. So far, still nothing super fancy. We're going to grab our example code. Gosh, I'm going to put in this P element, this paragraph element, and still, you know what? I've said I am rubbish at forms and rubbish at CSS on forms, but so far this isn't too dangerous for us. So we did learn about viewport units last week. Okay, so we're going to viewport height, and 1 unit of viewport height is 1% of the user's viewport height. And the same for width. So let's try and use some CSS. Let's give the body, let's spell body, right? And let's add the width. Let's make it 100%. Ooh, somebody who's not me. What's the difference between 100% here and the height is 100% view height? I'm going to ask y'all to, because, oh gosh, I was like, I know the answer. I would hope I know the answer. So here we've got the width at 100% and the height at 100 view height. And we know that 1 view height unit is 1% of the height of the user's viewport. What's the difference between these two these two measurements here? Aside from one is width and one is height. While I'm waiting for the lag to catch up, I'm going to keep bopping around. Aha! What a great time for a break. So the boot camp is free. There's no way to pay. We wouldn't ask you to. And Free Code Camp is free. It's kind of in the name. But Free Code Camp is a registered nonprofit. So don't spend money you don't have. But if you find yourself in a fancy, well-paid job in tech after this, if you feel like it, and when you have the money only, donating to Free Code Camp is a really nice thing to do. So, okay, so we've got somebody saying, hey, do you know what the width is 100% width is proportional, and the other one's sort of relative. So proportional relative, yeah, that's. But I think these might both be 100% of different things. Actually, no, that's a terrible cackle. So here, the body is 100% of the parent element. So the parent element for, let's look at our CSS. Here, oh, excuse me, CSS. Our body is a child only of the HTML. Well, yeah, so this is saying, in effect, oh, Christina, you were typing this out as I was saying it. Sorry to cheat. So Christina's like, hey, I got you, Jess. I'm going to say this way better than you're trying to. Whereas 100% is 100% of the parent, the container. And here that's the HTML, the root element. Stunning. Perfect. That is a way better way to describe it than me. And Christina's here saying, whereas 100 view height isn't looking at the parent element to determine height, it's looking at the height of the user's viewport, which, if they've got a much longer viewport than you have content on your page, that could be bigger. Thank you so much. You've explained that way better than I have. Let's get rid of the horizontal scroll bar, and we're going to set, oh, I'm so sorry. Let's come back to the CSS. Let's set the margin in the body. I'm going to set that to 0. Just because by default, some browsers, ha ha ha. Oh, ha ha ha. You love the little cackle. I don't know if you could see it. We've got no little scroll bar here. And when I get rid of that, we have a little scroll bar. So by default, a lot of browsers give you a little margin that you might not necessarily want. We've gotten rid of that. And we're saying, hey, it's 100% of the width, but don't give me any margin. I'm going to check our code. And you know what? This is still fine. We're still in the body. Let's add a background color. Ooh, do you know what? There are a ton of people who, when they look at a hex code, they just know they have a good idea of what the vibe's going to be. And I am not one of these people, so I think we're going to be. Ooh, okay, it's that dark blue we saw earlier. That's something I should have been able to guess because we did see it in the preview. And I bet y'all $1 you can tell me why this. I'm going to give you a little bit more space. What's wrong with this? Why is this completely unsuitable and not okay? Well, I'm making it more okay. We're going to change the color, which is the color of the elements inside body. And here, that's going to change the color of the text as well. We're going to check our code. Everything's terrible, but everything's fine. So as we suggested from our title, we're going to create a form. I'm going to get rid of my CSS. Thank you. Ooh. And I'm going to miss trying to get that mosquito that's been plaguing me. So we're going to create a form element. Oh, heck. Are we going to create a form element? Just grabbing. Here's the MDN for form elements, just in case we forgot. Like, it's real easy to be like, forms, were we doing form? We did forms like week 3. We did forms like weeks and weeks ago. Here, I'm going to form in a form with our action. It's going to be targeting register demo free code camp. Okay. Let's see if this is what it meant. Everything passes. Everything's terrible, but this isn't too bad. So we covered this really, really briefly when we first talked about forms. The method attribute is going to talk about which method the form is going to send or get data. So there's different kinds of ways to send data. Here, the form data can be sent via a GET request as URL parameters. Ooh, this is a really, really good question. So Baking's saying, hey, has anybody figured out a good way to remember when the size of your element or the size you're laying is relative to the container versus the entire screen? So here, those are just the different types. If I'm understanding correctly, and I may not, here we're saying, hey, anytime we're talking about the viewport width or the viewport height, those are going to be the size elements that are relative to the user's viewport, the size of their screen they're looking at this in. So here, the form data is going to be sent with a GET request. We haven't really gone into this in too great a detail. I'm going to grab the link. Oh, actually, if it's not a bother, I might ask Etta, could I ask you to grab a link to the MDN for on forms where it talks about the method attributes, just in case. So we don't need to know a huge amount about this yet, but if you want to dig into it a little bit more. Oh, never mind. Ha ha ha. Everything's fine. I was like, hey, let's get you some documentation so we'll learn more about getting post later. So here, when I set the method to, oh gosh, thank you very much, Etta. We just chucked that into the chat. So our form, we're going to set the method attribute to post. Does that feel okay? That feels okay. And it's always really cruel to sort of feel out, hey, when are we going to do this? I know, I know. So viewport, Yulido makes a really solid point here, and thank you. Viewport doesn't necessarily mean the entire screen. That's about viewport is about the window your user is looking at your web content in. Unfortunately, the idea of a size of a screen is pretty non-standard in 2026. So my monitor may be different than your monitor, which may be different than the phones almost all of us are using. So we're going to have 3 field set elements. Hmm. Fields, was that a void element? I think it's not. Let's check our code and let me tell us now. Yeah, but you are within the form. I think a field set is definitely not a void element. So, gosh, everything's fine. Everything's stressful, but everything's fine. It would be a very silly thing for that to be a void element, wouldn't it? Let's check our code. Everything continues to be fine. So, all right, we're going to add 4 label elements. Okay, to the first field set. So we've got 1, and I'm using the command C, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, just 4 label elements, that's it? Huh. I bet we're going to add some more information to them shortly. All right, so let's add the text here inside the label element, enter your first name, enter your last name. I'm copying and pasting these over, and I'm copying and pasting them into the field, into this space between the opening and closing tags that make up each one of the label elements. This feels wrong. This feels very, very wrong. So we've got all of our labels inside this first field set, and I bet that's not what we're doing. But for now, it's here, and we'll move it around. Oh, excuse me. I'm trying to move my worst cat song out of my way. Thank you, Marquis. So we're coming back, and we've got a lot going on. We're going to review elements. We talked about M and rem last time. Remember that rem is the standard text size for your root element, whereas M can be the standard text size that you set in different elements. So M can change a bit more than that rem. Label elements are inline by default, so they're side by side here. Okay, let's add display block. Ooh, and I quite like this. We're going to get rid of our HTML. Thank you. I quite like this because it hasn't really told us what to do in our CSS. We get a lot of hand-holding sometimes, and this time a little bit less hand-holding. I think that we want a type selector. Oh, heck, heck, heck. Oh, heck, heck, heck. We're going to add the display block to this label type selector and see if that's what it wants. We're also going to add a margin of 0.5 rem and 0. Remember when you add a margin and you only add 2, it's going to set the top and bottom margin to the first number you've given it and the left and right margin to the second. So here we would have the top, and remember it always goes clockwise. It doesn't matter so much here, but here you've got half a rem on your top margin. You've got 0 on your right margin. You've got that same half rem again on your bottom margin, and you've got 0 on your left margin. Okay, so we've got a little bit more space. That feels good. We check our code and we continue to bump along. Gosh, gosh, where are we? Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of my preview for just a moment, just because we've got a lot going on here. So here, nest an input element within each label. Make sure to add each input after the label text and include a space after the colon. So this is not a CSS problem, it sounds like. It sounds like we're adding input elements to the HTML. So I'm going to bring our preview back as well. Yeah, getting these instructions and you're starting to think, is this an HTML thing? Is this a CSS thing? Is it both? Is it neither? What do I need to start working with? I really like that Free Code Camp starts to sort of make you guess and make you work off what you've learned so far. Hmm. So here we've added a space, input element. Oh gosh, and I think an input element is indeed a void element. But if I'm wrong, and I was very wrong and a little bit silly in the last one, we can just change it. The nice thing is there are absolutely, and I'm just copying and pasting this input right after a space for each of these labels. Nest within each label. Okay, so here we've got our label element, and then we've got the input inside it. Okay, cool, cool. Hmm, let's check our code. This is really happy with this. Now I see a question about using appearance none on a radio button, and I don't know this question. So we might experiment with it later if you have time. Oh, Edda is just like, you know what? You can put it other places. Like the question was, hey, if you add appearance none to a radio button, does the new radio button whose style have to be in the exact same place the old one would be by default? Or can you sort of move it around using CSS? I'm having a difficult time imagining where you would move it sort of out of the flow. But yeah, and you can change the order of things with CSS as well. I've been working on my own website slowly, slowly, I promise. And one of the things I wanted to do was the order the elements appear in are different for people on big viewports and small viewports using media queries, which I think we're coming to next week. I'm going to continue. We are going to follow accessibility best practices because we love accessibility best practices. I'm going to shrink this cute little preview. So we're going to link our input element and our label element together using the for attribute. Okay. So our label, where am I? Make sure I'm in the right. Gosh. Like, so I added the slash in my void elements for input, and you don't always have to. So technically, a browser will accept it and it'll work. Some people love it, some people insist on it, some people hate it. And sometimes you can use code formatters or prettifiers, and sometimes they love it and sometimes they hate it. So here in our label, we're going to add the for attribute. And this is going to be for first name. And you might be thinking, Jess, do you know what? Browsers must be really smart if they're able to see that this is first name in the text here and parse that it's for first name, except they're not quite that smart. We also have to make it an ID here in the input and have that be first name. So the way we're semantically linking these to make them more accessible is the label is for first name, and here's the ID first name. Okay. Here we've got the label. Let's just do these all super fast. We've got the label for last name. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to copy this. And here in this input, I'm going to have the input ID be last name and copy that in. Here, this label, we're going to add the for absolutely for email. And here, very, very similarly, I'm going to copy that. And the ID for this input element is going to be email. Where are we? Who are we? And the last one is going to be new password. The label here is for absolutely, no question, new password. Oh, Mel, that's a really good point. Thank you. So Mel makes a really good point to say, actually, Jess, do you know what? Because this input element is nested inside our label, we have an implicit relationship caused. Yes, yes, yes. And for a lot of assistive technology, that implicit relationship is good enough. But we love doing more than good enough. So remember that implicit is when you nest the input within the appropriate label. Here we're doing implicit by nesting them and explicit by saying, hey, also, this is for this ID. So we want to go ahead and just make them real Titan friendly. Thank you very, very much. Oh, our code still passes. We're going to keep bopping along. So we just specify the type attribute. Okay. Let's just look at these first and hang on, wait. I'm going to get rid of the instructions. Remembering what we remember about the different types of input we can have, what input types might we want here? By default, the input type is going to be text. And I think the input type for first name, like people's first names are usually made of text. Dennis is asking, okay, well, is it good practice to nest inputs and labels then? Yeah, we absolutely can. So if you want to stack these being implicitly connected and explicitly connected, you absolutely can. But because we're explicitly saying this is for this input with this ID, not nesting them shouldn't hurt anybody either. So I think first name, I think that's going to be text. Last name, I think that's going to be text. Emails are made of text, but I remember we had a special input type for emails. And I am a little suspicious that I don't know if we explicitly covered this yet, but I think we might have a special input type for that password, huh? Let's come back to our instructions. Let's shrink our little preview. Cool, this is saying, just reminding us, do you know what? If you do not specify the type, your browser is just going to default to text. Here, it has defaulted to the one we want, but let's be a little bit more explicit. Let's be really intentional. So for the first two, boom, exactly like I thought, the input to have a type of text. Yeah, where are we? Who am I? Oh gosh, where am I is a really good question because I'm in the wrong place here. In the input type, I can't make a label with an input type of text. That's weird. Here are input. Let's just talk through this code. So here, we're in our field set, not a problem. We've got the label. Hey, this is for our first name. We got the text, enter your first name. Cool. Now we've got an input element with the ID of first name, and the type of that input element is text. Stunning. We want our last name. We're going to come into this input nested inside it. We're also going to make that text. Okay, that's not a problem. Stunning, stunning. Here, the input type for our email is going to be type email. Could somebody who's not me remind us what's different about email versus text? What does email do? What's a snazzy little feature it has? And here in this input element, this last one, we're going to add a type of password. And I think this is the first time we've seen password. And password does a cute little built-in thing where, oh, it does the little, it obscures your typing by default, which I quite like. We're going to check our code. It passes. Everything's fine. Yep, Mel, you're absolutely right. Mel's like, hey, do you know what? The email type is going to do a little bit of validation and say, hey, I need an at sign. I need a letter before the at sign. I need a couple letters after it. We've got a little bit. Yep, Lucy, perfect. Thank you. Lucy said this way better than I did. Lucy's like, hey, email has an auto validation, and it's not validating that this is a real email address or this person has access to this email inbox, but just is this sort of email shape? Does it have that at symbol? Does it have some characters on either side? Thank you very much. All right, the first input element to handle Forb submission. After the last field set element, let's add an input type, an input element. Okay. Add an input element. And check it out, by default, we created an input element way down here at the bottom. And by default, it says, hey, 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 you haven't told me what type you want. So I think you want text. No. Here, the type I'm going to say is submit. Gosh, and it just magically changed that to a submit button. I quite like it. And the value here, the value, what would the value do? So by default, our submit button says submit. And here we're saying set the value to submit. But I'm going to change it to submit me, just so we can see, cool, by default, it does add a value of submit. It adds that text. But, jump, 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 we can have that say something different as long as it's something that still holds meaning for our users. Oh, we've got somebody asking what's field set again. So field set, let me grab the MDN for it. And I feel like I'm being really, really lazy by always saying, let's grab the MDN, let's grab the MDN. But I love, love, love this muscle memory of let's go get the documentation. So field set is an element that's used to group some things that are connected to each other in a form. So this could be an input, this could be a label. So, hey, we've got a part of a form here. The field set is saying, I'm going to create a really smart container, a really smart semantic box that knows that I want to semantically link these. Mel saying, hey, with the certification to make a survey from using a lot of labels and IDs became problematic with duplicate IDs on the page. Is there a convention for naming labels differently from other page IDs? Could you ask this in a bit more detail? So by default, you should only really have one, like ID should always be unique. But yeah, it can get really, really easy to name things really samey. So when you're adding these IDs, when you're adding labels, an ID is always unique. It's like a name tag, it's first name, middle name, last name in a universe where none of your elements have the exact same names. Because you could have somebody with your first, middle, and last name. But here, think like you look for human readable. And users saying, hey, does using this field set, is this a more accessible approach than just using divs with IDs? Heck yes, it is. So assistive technologies are going to look for these field sets. Field sets have a lot of semantic meaning. So I know I fuss at y'all a lot, but y'all have heard me say again and again and again, whenever we can, we want to try and use the most specific elements we can. And a divs are great. I use divs for a bunch of things, but divs don't carry a lot of meaning. Yeah. And Christina is saying you're getting confused as to value on the submit as it put text in the button, but the other input types provide the value that is submitted by the user for input. You're absolutely correct. So yep, just to recap, let's come back to our code. Here, We've got an input type with submit that has the value of submit. And what this value is it's, sorry, please. What this value is what kind of text we want displayed here. Whereas the type here is specifying, hey, what kind of information are we asking our user to give us? Is that okay? Where are we? Where are we? Okay, we're going to submit and continue. Oh, step 16. Oof. And I want to be conscious. Don't want to do every single one of these for you because it's not fun. And because I'm going to go get some ice cream after class, if it's quite all right. So I want to make sure that I'm answering your questions as we go. So check any questions you might have. And for folks watching this asynchronously, come on into the Discord and ask us as well. Where are we? Where are we? So I'm going to go and just do a little bit more of this because doing every single step is very boring, even if I'm excited as I look things up. So we should be able to submit this form, but it doesn't do much. And being able to submit a form, what you're not submitting, you're the developer. Hey, you are the developer. We are the developer. We're the developers. As the developers, we are probably going to be submitting this form a bunch. We're going to be doing a lot of testing to make sure it works. It works how we expect it to. But at the end of the day, the people who are going to be pressing submit are your users. And right now, if your user pushed submit just like this, they could send you a form that has no information for first name, no information for last name, no information for email, and no information for, they could just leave all of this blank. And that's not actually super useful. Let's add the required attribute to the input elements in the first field set. So submit, we don't have to make, oh gosh, somebody who's not me. Why would we not need to add the required attribute to our submit button? And I'm going to let y'all catch up because there's always a huge delay. I'm here in the input element. I'm going to add required. I'm going to copy and paste this because I always mess up typing. So here, we're going to say, hey, required. Our user can't push submit on this form until they put some kind of text in this first name. I'm going to come into the next input for last name, and I'm going to say that's required too. I'm going to just paste in required. Where am I? The email? Boom. We are putting a bunch of requirements for people today. I want that email to be required, and I want this new password, that input to be required here as well. Let's check our code. And that works just fine. So a certain type attribute, I'm so sorry. I'm going to go back through the chat and I asked y'all, hey, why is the email input different? And Begging's like, hey, I think that this has some validation built in. And I think Mel also said validation. Sorry, this is like me picking folks out in class. You're like, you're right, you're right, you're right. But we had a really cool, Mel's like, hey, email has some validation expects that. And Lucy was just so helpful saying email has some auto validation around the format of this text where it expects the @ symbol. And here's step 17. What we're seeing is y'all are completely right. Heck yes. And I asked, we just added required, 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 just 4 times, to the name, first name, last name, email, and password. And I asked y'all, like, hey, why don't we need that for submit? And get us like, Jess, come on. You don't need to add it for submit because it's kind of contained within it. Like the form information doesn't get sent until you push submit. So submit, like you said, it's kind of self-defining or self-declarative. Because our user needs to push submit to send us the data, it's kind of required by definition. I like that. So, we're going to add inside our input element, we're going to add a minimum length of the value of 8. for a password. Okay, so this is going to be an open-ended question. We're adding a minimum length for our password. Our password must be, our users' passwords must be at least 8 characters long. The questions I want to ask are, why do we want to set, and this is a security question, a minimum character length. Oh, so why do we want to use min length to set a minimum character length for passwords? So this one's a security question, and it's not a quiz, everything's, but even more importantly, are there any forms, are there any fields here? Are there any input types where where it would be a bad idea to set a minimum character length, and why? So yeah, so why do I want a minimum length on the password? And which of these would I probably be a little grumpy if somebody put a minimum length on? So one of those is a privacy question, and one of them is kind of a culture and language question, huh? Let's come to our password, required. And we can put these attributes in any order, but oftentimes folks have a sort of order in their heart. User's absolutely right. And users like, Jess, I bet you would be annoyed if you saw learners putting a minimum length on the last name and the first name as well. So I've seen a bunch of folks whose surnames are, I've got a friend whose surname is Yu, which is 2 characters. And she does not love it when there's a minimum length on surnames. Similarly, maximum length on surnames, because like people can have double barrel surnames with 2 surnames and a hyphen. People can have 3 or 4. Names are buck wild. When you add a minimum length or a maximum length on names, you're just looking to make somebody's day a little weird. Oh gosh, we're gonna add that min length. Oh gosh, we're gonna add that min length. I'm gonna set that to a value of 8. Yeah, that means, let's talk through our logic here. Here, a password, a new password for our users is required. They're required to add a new password before they can push submit successfully. But they're also going to be required to create a new password whose minimum length is at least 8 characters long. Let's check our code. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Wow, I am bothering y'all. Why would we not love setting a maximum length on passwords? Like, surely you don't want people to be able to put all of the text for War and Peace in there. Ooh, I love this. I love this. Hang on. Wait, wait, wait. Hmm. You don't want to let people type in letters forever for their password. But oftentimes I'll be creating a new password on a service and it'll say, oh, no, no, no. You can't have a password that's more than 20 characters long. And I personally love a password that has more than 20. Yeah, like a long password's a strong password. Cool. So we're getting some additional questions and Mighty Dragon saying, hey, yeah, but let's say we want to do really strong passwords. What if say we want to set requirements for special characters in our password? And there's a couple different ways we can do that. So, best way to do that is with regular expressions, isn't it? So, I'm grabbing this. Is there an easy built-in way to add that? Required. Ha ha ha. I'm just grabbing the pattern. Fantastic. So that you can set this, but I'm going to grab this. So the input type for password. There are some really cool things you can do where you say, hey, I'm going to require a certain pattern to be involved. I'm going to require certain characters, but writing those requires writing regular expressions. Regular expressions are a type of kind of abstract feeling programming, or I'd say they're programming. They're like really lightly frustrating math problems. I hate them, but I'm a grump. So I'm going to come back in here. Let's do one or two more steps, and then I'm going to make sure y'all don't have, if you have any more questions, hit me up with them. I love, love, love questions like special characters in your password. How? Ooh, and Yulido makes a really good point. So with these forms, you can enable or disable people putting in different types of characters, and it can be a real jerk move. So requiring people to include special characters. And here the special characters could be an exclamation point, an at sign. You don't want to tell them exactly which ones to add, but like, hey, add a special character like, and then list the ones they can use is good password policy. But Yulido makes a really solid point as well to say, hey, sometimes developers disable special characters in name fields, which can be a real jerk move for folks who have names that have non-Latin characters. Okay, with ha 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 ha, look at this. How do we do pattern? Here's pattern. So the pattern attribute to define a regular expression to match. Here, we're going to use pattern to say, hey, and let's talk through this. Let's come into our password. We're going to add the pattern attribute. And what we're doing here is these square brackets. Gosh, these square brackets are marking where a regular expression goes. Yeah. So here, I'm rubbish at regular expressions, but I think what this is saying is this regular expression saying, oh, and you know what? Here, we've got a regular expression defining the pattern of characters that we're looking for in our password. And here, the pattern also gives us a space to specify the minimum length. So we can delete this. Fantastic, stunning. Everything's terrible, but this is just great. Here, this regular expression says, hey, I want my user to give me 8 or more characters with the lowercase letters A to Z or A to Z, and they can also use the numbers 0 to 5. Whew. Let's check our code. This feels like a really weird pattern for a password, but we're going to stop there because I am terrible and mean, and because I don't want to do every single piece for you, if that's okay. This is stunning. Mel's like, hey, if we are setting this pattern attribute, if we are using a regular expression to require users to give us a certain combination of characters, shouldn't we let the user know what characters we're asking for? Please, 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 please do. There's nothing more frustrating than coming up with a really, really good password or having your password manager, which is a little program that keeps your password safe, having a password manager come up with a really, really good password. And then you input it in, it's brand new, and the system comes back and says, actually, we don't allow you to use that special character. No, thank you. So giving users some context to say, hey, please create a new password. It has to include at least one letter, at least one number, and at least one special character can be really, really good documentation for your users. Thank you very much. I love how we just raced through user-centered design, but y'all keep coming back to, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? In the most useful ways possible. Let's come on back, take a deep breath and come all the way up. For what I'd love for y'all to take some time to do. There's the design a contact form. And we're going to look at this really briefly together, but we're looking for a form that's really similar to this project. So the design a contact form feels a lot like the workshop we've just finished, except as a lab, it's a little bit more creative. Yeah, you still got to get your test to pass. And if y'all are in a hurry and if y'all are having a stressful day, you might want to say, I'm just getting my test passing, then I'm done. But if you've got time and space and energy, making a weird creative form that passes the testing requirements is pretty good. So over the next couple of days, please, please, please try and get this one finished. There's never an obligation to, but if you put that code someplace where you can share it, you're welcome to drop it into Discord and be like, hey, look what I made. After the session, can I ask you to go through as many steps as you can from build a game settings panel to sort of continue to get that muscle memory from our CSS. Um, Also, we're going to look at design a feature selection page. This is a lot, so if you need a couple extra days, don't worry about it. Take the time you need. All of our days we're focusing on different topics are about the time we're spending in our sessions looking at them. Not that there's a hard due date and you're in trouble if you're not done. We will ask you to read the review and please, 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 by yourself, take the styling forms quiz. Unfortunately for all of you, ha 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 ha, you are stuck with me again tomorrow, where we'll look at this tomorrow. Styling forms is one of my least favorite things in the world, but y'all have made this really, really laid back and really chill. If it's quite all right, I will let you go to hopefully have. If it's morning where you are, just go ahead and have the easiest day you can. Like the whole world's hard, right? If it's the afternoon, it is a good time for a little cup of tea and a stretch. And if it's late, late at night where you are, y'all, all of this can wait till tomorrow. I will let you go, and I'll see you tomorrow if you're around. Bye, team.